Hi there! As you may have noticed, this is my first video on a channel I've created very recently. As of right now, while recording, I've actually created the channel in the last hour. Anyways, I'm Books with Beth, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Today, we will be talking about Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. Please keep in mind that if you have not read the book yet, and if you're planning on reading it, and if you don't want to be spoiled, that there will be spoilers up ahead. You probably already know that though, because if you look at the time of the video, how could I talk that long without spoilers? Like, what would there be to say? It would be like 5 minutes long tops. Anyways, my overall opinion, before we get into the little details and whatnot, is that it was a really good book. My review isn't going to be overwhelmingly positive, but I did enjoy reading it. I think the plot was interesting and original, and I thought that the cultural elements were really interesting to learn about. On that subject, I just wanted to quickly say that I'm not African, and that while my thoughts on the cultural aspects of the book are researched, all I know about it is from the research that I've done. So there's a very good chance that I'm missing something, or that, I'm missing some context that's important to the history and the mythology. So basically, I just want to stress that my opinion will not be as well informed as someone who grew up in a part of Africa where people learn about these things. But I am trying to understand the book as a product of the culture that the author comes from. So if you know something relevant to the book that I didn't mention, I'd really love it if you could put it down in the comments so that I can learn more. Now, without further ado, let's just get into my thoughts on the individual parts of the book. Okay, so first, I want to talk about the pacing in this book. The fact that the events seem to happen one after another, very quickly, without any pause, is honestly fantastic. The author straight up assumes that the readers have absolutely no attention span, and am I offended? Slightly. But is she right? Absolutely. I remember in one of the chapters, Anon shows up, and right after, Amari and Zane are kidnapped. No pause, no dawdling, and no slow-paced parts. In all honesty, I really appreciated that. Now, I want to talk about some of the characters. First off, Amari is a little bit scared and weak in the beginning, but who wouldn't be considering the circumstances she was put in? But then later on, her character arc was honestly really neat to me, and mostly because I liked the way she became sort of like a sister to Sally. She was just super friendly and compassionate, even if Zilly was pretty rude to her in the beginning. However, on to the subject of the rest of her family. I gotta say that Anon absolutely fucking sucks. He was honestly my least favorite character in the whole entire book. To begin, I'll talk about the fact that I actually really like that Anon was a Maji, and that the author told us near the beginning of the whole book and kind of left us in suspense as to what was going to happen with him and his character. While his father was an awful little bitch who wants to kill all the Maji. The conflict there is pretty interesting, and the self-hatred and conflicting emotions that Anon has to deal with add an extra dimension to his character that I really enjoyed reading about. However, he is definitely pretty unlikable since he was also super weak, kind of like Amari, but less understanding and compassionate. We can see that he's really trying to be cruel, but he simply isn't, whereas Amari has kind of come to terms with the fact that she isn't cruel. Their parents clearly deserve Parent of the Year awards, as we can see. Speaking of which, their mother was super uptight and really annoying. Come on, let your daughter live a little, dude. And their father, King Saran, is needlessly cruel, and on the scale of villains, he definitely kinda sucks. Obviously, as a villain, he isn't gonna be good per se, but he's not even a little bit likable, especially when he kills Binta, who literally did nothing wrong and was super sweet to Mari. He then even cheats on his wife, which, while she isn't great, his actions are definitely deplorable. Basically, he was really unlikable, but I somehow don't dislike him more than Anon. At least my emotions of hatred weren't that strong. Probably because he's simply less annoying, and also maybe because he just doesn't have as much screen time or page time, as you could call it. Now, speaking of likable characters, of the main characters, Zane and Zaylee are very cool. Zane is the only level-headed, reasonable character in this whole entire book, and for that reason, we stan. I do feel bad for him though, because it is rough that he keeps having to atone for Zaylee's mistakes. Clearly, it's the curse of the eldest sibling. But I do think, actually, that Zaylee's a lot of fun. She's quite impulsive and whatnot, but I like her and the fact that she is a very strong character that can do stuff and make her own decisions and have her own autonomy. Her skill and her interest in using her staff and her magic to summon spirits, of course. How cool is that? I honestly found it super neat. Okay, so now we are moving on to the ships. And I kind of have one thing that I would really like to begin this section with. One phrase, if you will. What the fuck? Zaylee and Anon just really sucks. I'm a little bit conflicted about it, even though I kind of don't like it, because on one hand, enemies to lovers is kind of fun, and I am just a little bit of a sucker for it. However, I don't really know if I like this particular one. Well, I do. I know that I don't like it very much. And here's why. Anon is a weak bitch. I hated the way he switched sides and decided to prioritize Orisha over Zaylee, because it was clear that Orisha wouldn't really care about him because of his whole being a Maji thing. And in the end, he was really bitchy and accusatory towards her. He says, if you trusted me, worked with me, your father would still be alive. This completely places blame on her, even though he was the one who switched sides and was in the wrong. Dude. He cares too much about the ideals that his father had. Like, I get it. Old ideals are hard to replace. But he is just so dumb. His father was obviously gonna kill him if he didn't kill his father first. In the end though, it feels kind of like karma when his father tries to murder him. Is that mean to say? Okay, it might be. Oh well. Basically, I hope he stays dead, but I feel like in the next book, which I haven't read yet, so no spoilers, they will have someone heal him, probably. But then again, the part with the pickpocket, Rowan, seems like it's setting up a little second ship thing. It could be Zaylee and Rowan, or a love triangle with both ships. The dynamic between Rowan and Zaylee does seem so much better though, so hopefully they do go with that one. However, if they do try to make Anon and Zaylee work again, I will be so pissed. I don't want that to happen. As for the other ship of the book, Amari and Zane, that was kind of sweet. I liked it. However, I did find it to be a little too peaceful, but maybe that's just relative to the other couple. The super chaotic one that I didn't like. But there wasn't a whole lot going on. Maybe I just like to complain, I don't know. I think that I preferred the other parts of the book, like the world building and the plot, to the ships. But anyways, the family tree, think about it, okay? The family trees must be super convoluted and messy. Because Anon and Amari are siblings. Zaylee and Zane are siblings. Anon and Zaylee are dating, and Amari and Zane are dating. Now, just like the whole enemies to lovers thing, there were also certain cliches that I wasn't really a huge fan of. Like when they pulled Baba out to hurt Zélie even more and ended up killing him. I understand that it's a good way to raise the stakes, but due to the sheer amount of times I've seen it, it wasn't exactly too shocking. The royal parents are also kind of a cliche. The strict mother and the cruel, iron-fisted king is something I feel like I've seen before a couple of times. However, I do think that the rest of the book is wholly original and unique, and Tomi Adeyemi definitely breathes life into her characters and her world in a way that cliches don't feel too overused. So even though I did think that some parts were a little bit overused, I don't think it impacted the overall book too much. Now, the Dreamscape is fantastic. Even if I don't love the ship, I love that this Dreamscape gave the main ship a little way to communicate and actually get to know each other. I also appreciate the way they used it in the plot. The fact that Anon was able to deduce where Zélie was from her off-can comment about the price of water was a whole lot of fun to see. Now we'll be moving on to how the book kind of translates into real life and what elements it pulls from real life to make it so successful and so compelling. So according to the About the Author section in the book, Tomi Adeyemi, who is the author of the book, studied West African mythology, religion, and culture in Salvador, Brazil. I thought it was really nice because it made it different from the whole cookie-cutter teenage girl has to save the world, and it made it a really fascinating read. And now we'll begin to explore what parts of the mythology and the culture she used. So firstly, I wanted to reiterate that I am not from Africa, so this isn't a definitive debunking of the cultural aspects by any means. I may be missing some of the context, so if you know more about this and you notice that I've gotten anything wrong, or if I'm missing something, please do let me know. Call me out in the comments so that I can learn from this and, just know a little bit more about this book that I've been reading. But now I will begin by saying that the groups of different Magi is reminiscent of tribes. Deities do exist within African mythology, such as the supreme god Amma, Oloran, or Mulungu. They are believed to not really be connected with everyday life, so people tend to call on lesser gods. This is similar to the way that Magi in the book don't call on the deities, both because they're distant and that they're believed to be dead by Zélie mostly. The clans themselves are clearly based off of this mythology. One example was the grounders and welders of the Ae clan that can control land and metals. They have a deity known as Ogun, which is the same name as West African deity for war and iron. The others seem to be similarly based off of African mythology, such as Oya, the deity of the Iku clan that are in charge of life and death. In Yoruba, Oya is known as the goddess of weather as well as a warrior. Zélie in the book is clearly a warrior. The book also states that when she senses spirits, her teeth chatter as if she's in an ice bath, and when she does the incantation to bring a spirit, Minoli, back to life, she notes that the power hits her lungs like the first breath of air after diving underwater. Sand swirls around her with the force of a storm. So, it's clearly very intentional, very well crafted, and I honestly just really appreciated this portrayal of African mythology in the book, since it added a whole new layer to the book. Next up, I wanted to talk about the history and the politics. I thought that the political conflict between the Magi and the Orisons was very intense, very high energy, and overall just very well written. The lore and history of how the Orisons, and especially King Saran, hurt and killed Magi for their abilities, and the way they still do it to people who simply have white hair, was awful, but definitely reminiscent of modern-day racism, especially in America. Onto another heavy sort of topic, we'll be discussing the class divide. I found it to be quite realistic and I honestly appreciate the way that the author addressed it. In the second chapter, we see that Zélie has to deal with people bickering, demanding bronze and silver over promises and fish. The taxes seem to worsen everything, since they're used as a weapon by the guards to maintain control over diviners, since guards come by Mama Agba's as well as Zélie's Baba's place to ask for more money due to associating with diviners. This causes Zélie's Baba to risk his life while going fishing, since they simply do not have enough money to pay the tax. Here we see how money works to further divide the different classes and ensure the poor remain poor. The threat of putting diviners like Zélie into the stocks, which is the labor force of Orisha, which people enter when they can't afford to pay taxes, is reminiscent of the police or jail system that disproportionately affects Black people, mostly in America. Zélie says it's an excuse to round up her people. No one who enters escapes. The labor is only supposed to last until the original debt is worked off, but when the taxes keep rising, so does the debt. Meanwhile, Amari is a part of the royal family. Her family is rich, as proven by the way she opens the third chapter with coconut pie. The people around her have lavish booba tops, wrapped Eero skirts, lily-scented perfumes, and sweet cakes. Even if it isn't really Amari's fault, I can see why Zélie might resent her. Amari just doesn't have to think about things like money for survival or taxes. But for Zélie, her and her family's lives depend on it. Now, the ending parts were weird. They were so weird. Remember that I haven't read the second book yet, so please don't spoil it. But I just had a couple of thoughts on the way they ended this first installment. Like, why didn't Zélie say that she can't bring back magic? Everyone was kind of depending on you, no pressure or anything, but I think that information would have been nice to know. Also, in the end, how come everyone has magic now? I definitely wasn't expecting that to happen. The king was probably like, oh god, what have I done? I would honestly pay a lot of money to see his face when he gets magic, if he has it, that is. Like, I bet he'd feel really stupid, since that's the thing he killed his son over, literally a couple of chapters ago, so whoops. It was definitely just a very satisfying end to the book though, that Anon got hurt, for karma reasons, even if we're not sure he's dead. To wrap up this video, I'd like to say, please donate to Black Lives Matter. In her author's note, Tomi Adeyemi talks about how unarmed Black people keep getting shot by white police. To quote her, she says, "These are just a few tragic names in a long list of Black lives taken too soon. Mothers ripped from daughters, fathers ripped from sons, and parents who will live the rest of their lives with a grief no parent should have to know. Let this book be proof to you that we can always do something to fight back." So I'd like to remind you guys to do what you can to help, such as voting for political parties who actively support Black rights if you're of age to vote, donating, whether to advocacy funds like Black Lives Matter, or bail funds that pay bail for innocent incarcerated people like the Bail Project, or even to specific victims and their families, such as the fundraiser for Breonna Taylor's family. There will be a bunch of sources for donations in the description, and as of June 2021, these are all still open. Also, if you can't do that, and if you're not really in a position to do any of the things that I said before, I encourage you to spread awareness on social media. Sharing posts that people make raising awareness about the issue can really help in times like these. Also, I implore you to support Black YouTubers and businesses. But before showing you some of my favorites, I want to make it clear that the examples I'm showing you are not only because they're Black, but because I genuinely like their stuff and their content is fantastic. Basically, I'm just using this as a moment to fangirl, but we're not going to talk about that. Also, Please recommend some more if I've missed anyone whose content you really enjoy. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go through them. So first, we're gonna talk about D'Angelo Wallace. You've probably almost definitely heard of this creator already, but if you haven't, you are really missing out. He does commentary, and he's also just a very entertaining and confident creator. The man has 3 channels, and they are all just his name, D'Angelo Wallace, but I will have all of them linked in the description just in case you have trouble finding all of them or something. Also, there's the Office Husband podcast, which has 1 video so far, but I'm holding out hope that he's gonna make more. He's also got a Twitch account where he streams, and he has his recordings of those streams on D'Angelo VODs. In conclusion, holy shit, that's a lot of accounts, but they're all filled with very good content, so I will be sure to leave them down in the description. Secondly is Amanda BB. I found her through the Sims 4 content that she does because I wanted to hear other people rant about the packs, which, might I add, are expensive as hell. However, she also does makeup reviews, music reviews, and commentary, just to name a few topics, all of which I really enjoy. Speaking of Amandas, I also really like Amanda Mariana. She does fantastic commentary videos on social media and the education system, as well as fashion. Also, her videos on Black stereotypes in media are very informative. She somehow sums up these huge, very broad topics into much smaller videos that make them easy to understand. Also, she's just really funny and articulate and concise. Court Reezy is another person that a lot of people have probably heard about. Her videos are super funny and she's really charismatic. One series that really stuck with me is, of course, the rating TikTokers apology videos, because while the apologies themselves were mind-blowingly dreadful, not an exaggeration by the way, I really liked the way she talked about it. I remember it being super funny. Next up is It's Keisha. First thing, holy shit, her music is great. Go listen to First Time, because I loved it and you will not regret it. They're catchy and well made and just overall beautiful. I have to admit I found her because of the Gabby Hanna stuff, but I also really like her other stuff. The videos are clearly very well researched and she knows what she's talking about. While also not being boring, she's very engaging, which is super impressive because have you seen how many videos she makes? Like, her upload schedule is insane in a good way. Also, she actually did interviews with both Amanda BB and D'Angelo Wallace, both of whom I talked about earlier, and they were like the best crossovers ever. Next is Jade Fox. She has an LGBT plus themed channel, and I love it. It feels like a very safe space where you can also kind of just get roasted, basically. Especially in the video dressing like different types of lesbians, which was very funny and also did not even once, miss. She said she might make another one of these videos, so definitely go subscribe to her to find out if she does. Next, Jarvis Johnson, who makes videos about some really weird stuff. However, he's apparently really good at talking about this weird stuff since I keep watching his videos. But anyways, he makes videos about questionable TV shows, TikTokers, and life hacks. Remember to boil some hot spicy Cheetos because that, right there, is true cuisine. Anyways, I always end up laughing when I watch his videos, so I definitely recommend him. Then Kenny JD. First of all, watching her put on her makeup is a lot of fun, and second of all, her series Bad Movies and a Beat is great. She didn't lie, the movies are bad, but her commentary is so entertaining. One video that sticks out is the Mean Girls 2, the sequel. I actually thought that movie was a fever dream I had a while ago, and I appreciate the way she went over every single reason I may have thought that. Also check out her music. It's really incredible because it seems like she puts a lot of effort into it. She definitely seems like someone who's super passionate about music, so highly recommend. And last but certainly not least, Temi Donso is an art YouTuber who's super good at photorealism. Sometimes I look at her art and I literally cannot tell if it's a photo or a drawing. The art is so beautiful and amazing, and her videos and stories and stuff are also really entertaining. The one about the weird commission why she stopped doing commissions at all, was quite a good video, even if I feel bad that she had to endure that bullshit. Okay, and that's all the YouTubers I had to mention. Again, if you find any really good channels, please leave them down in the comments because I would love to check them out, and the ones I mentioned earlier will be in the description. Now I'm going to talk about Black-owned businesses. Of course, it is always preferable to shop local, and I, for very obvious reasons, cannot list every local business in every part of the world. So I implore you to search for Black-owned businesses in your area and make an effort to support them, since that is a great way to drive change. As for other writers, there are plenty of books written by incredibly talented Black people, such as this one by Tomi Adeyemi. Some books similar to this book include The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna, where a girl joins the Emperor's army of female warriors, kind of similar to the tones of politics and imperialism in this book. There is Legend Born by Tracy Dion, a book about a magic secret society similar to the Society of Magi, and Kingdom of Souls by Rena Barron. It includes topics of witch doctors and ancestral powers, similar to the healers in this book, all of which I will be making videos about in the future. I know there are a lot of other fantastic books written by Black people. I just wanted to recommend ones that somewhat resemble the fantasy and themes of this book that I just discussed. I also want to encourage you guys, if you can think of any, to give some recommendations for books written by Black people. Just leave them down in the comments and I will check them out. I know that I personally would like to read more books from non-white people, since they do kind of dominate the book industry, and though I could easily do Google searches, it would be nice to immediately know what other people, who presumably like the same videos that I do, since you clicked on this video, to know what you guys like. So, I've done a lot of talking. I hope you have enjoyed listening to my opinions. I hope that someone has listened to this at all, seeing as it's my first video. But remember that they are just opinions and that you might have different ones, and that's fine. Now, I am going to wrap up the video. If you have listened to any of this, thank you so much. Please let me know what you think, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!